ladies and gentlemen. This is Mitzi, and this is Mitzi Let's Think About It. I have a special guest today that we are going to be thinking about shame and guilt. Lois, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Oh, okay. That's easier. Okay, my name is Lois Hollis. I'm a nurse, bachelor's in science, and I'm a reverend and a researcher. I have come to learn many things. I'm 78, so we won't go into the long history here,
Yeah.
but I've always been about health. Ever since I've been 12 years old, I was in the nursing field. So I've always been in the helping. How can I make my life better? How can I make everybody else's life better? And that has never changed. Looking back on my life, I've always felt that I am a trailblazer. I did not know that because I just thought everybody did something because it wasn't done before. But I realized that not everybody's a trailblazer. I started the first kidney hemodialysis unit in the country in 1966.
Wow.
And I was instrumental in making home dialysis available. And we're talking 19, that's a long time ago. So I
Yeah.
wrote a lot of the protocols, and that gave me exposure to teaching and giving instructions into an area that had never been placed before.
Exposed. Yeah.
Exposed, that's a good word, especially since we're talking about shame guilt. Also, we developed hepatitis in the unit like every other unit, and I was instrumental because I was an operating room nurse to remove that hepatitis variant in the hepatitis units. And that started another road on that. So when I came to my own life at somewhere around 50, I collapsed and I was dying because I had severe heart disease, mitral valve leakage. I had scoliosis so bad that my lungs couldn't expand. And I was extremely depressed, even though I was like, ice skating and rollerblading and building units and writing books and giving conferences. I collapsed
Yeah.
into suicide, really.
Wow.
I was very depressed. And of course, I went to therapy and they helped, didn't want to commit suicide anymore. Well, wasn't happy. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't dancing. I tap danced all my life.
Oh, wow.
So, for me to collapse was, significant to me. And I did find an incredible healer that did help my bones. And I came to learn that I had severe childhood abuse. I was thrown down steps. And in fact, I had a near death experience when my neck was broken.
Wow. That's
See,
scary.
see, one, two, and three were broken. And you die with that. So
Yeah.
God sent me back. Thank you, Jesus.
Right. Amen.
And I've always had a feeling around me. And that's like 6 or 7. So I just thought everybody had that feeling of another worldly thing or outside the box thinking. But like as a 7, 8 year old, that's who I am. So I
Yeah.
just carried that throughout my life. And it helped me to do things that weren't on the planet yet. So in my recovery, I learned I had 4 or 5 brain traumas, broken jaw, broken neck, couple fractured ribs on one side and a couple on the other, broken pelvis. So I was severely handicapped, but I still tap danced. I mean, that's just like funny, isn't it? But it's so interesting that your mind and your emotions carry you, even though you feel like you can't do it,
Yeah.
but you can't do it forever.
True.
That's
Exactly.
what I'm saying, that the body says, okay, you held up for, 40 years and it fell down. And
Yeah.
they said I had a year to live because of my heart condition. And I,
Wow. And you proved
so
them wrong again.
yeah, because I found this wonderful. And in my recovery, I learned that shame guilt was the cause of everything.
Mm.
We're
Is it-
talking 19, like 20 years ago. That's before internet. So I had to go to the library to read Bradshaw's book and everything about shame and guilt and things of
Yeah.
that sort. And I'm going, well, there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
Spirit telling me. So once I figured out what shame guilt is, and it's not what people say today, I was able to identify it and release it within me. And I healed. I healed. I'm rollerblading at 78, okay? Dying at 55, but rollerblading at 70 because I figured out about shame guilt. That's how devastating it is.
Wow.
And people came to me and says, "Oh, Lois, what are you doing? You look so good and you're walking straight." And I said, "I'm just talking to myself." I learned how to self-heal.
Oh, that's very good.
I talk to my emotions like, hi, depression, how are you? Hi, anxiety, how are you? Instead of talking to somebody else. And the
Yeah.
interesting thing, my emotions start talking to me. It's
Mhm.
not schizophrenia. It's,
No,
no,
no, I totally understand what you're saying. I don't think you're schizophrenic. I don't think
you
you're
know,
crazy.
it's like,
It makes
no,
perfect sense because sometimes you have to coach yourself through your emotions and guide them.
exactly. I talk
Yeah.
to myself, but I identified each part of myself to talk to
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that's where I felt the shame, guilt energy. And then people came to me and they said, oh, Lois, can we please do what you're doing? I go, I guess so. So I
Mm-hmm.
taught them what I'm going to tell you today. And they got well and happy and younger. And they sent their grandmothers and mothers and cousins. And then somebody said, you should charge for this. I said, charge for what? I'm only telling people how to talk to themselves.
Yeah.
So that's how it's began 12 years
Wow.
ago.
That's
So,
pretty amazing.
well, when you're supposed to do something, God gives it to you, and
You gotta
that's it.
listen.
So, why is my opinion and what I say different? And I would like to introduce that if that's okay.
Of course, please
Okay.
continue.
Now, everybody says shame is bad and guilt is okay because we need that to be moral. No, we don't. We
Mm-hmm.
don't. We have our own inner guidance. We have our
Mm-hmm.
own strength. We know what's right and what's wrong. Never ever make decision out of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one thing I want people to write down. Never make a decision out of guilt or shame. Make it out of your clear mind.
Mm-hmm. That's
Okay,
smart.
that's very, very important. Why? Okay, what happens to your computer when it gets a computer virus
It freezes up.
and it goes goofy, right?
Yeah, it gets all wackadoodle. Yeah.
Okay, what happens to your life when the shame guilt energy, I call it shame guilt energy, depression, anxiety, I'm not good enough, self confidence, bullying, eating disorders, every negative. I have the DSM book of mental disorders,
Mm-hmm.
952 pages.
Wow.
All these are symptoms
Of shame and guilt.
of shame guilt.
And just in different verbiage, just in different words.
Yes, the more shame you guilt, the different diagnosis they give you, but it's
Mm-hmm.
only a diagnosis and it's only a symptom. Okay, why can I say that? We have the love energy. And what is that? That's positive energy. What does love energy give us?
Positive energy in return.
Joy and
Yeah.
happiness. We can tap dance, we can sing, we're self confidence, we
Yeah.
have
Peace.
intuition, we have confidence. Man, we can take on the world and we can because that's how we're made.
Yeah.
On the other side, we have shame, guilt energy,
Mm-hmm.
shame, guilt energy. And when it comes into us, how does it come into it? Well, we say, I'm not good enough. I'm stupid. I did that wrong. Sally told me I'll never make the grade. Your mother's telling you, your father's telling you, your culture's telling you, the president, the vice president, anybody in the world, your neighbor, anybody. We can't blame anybody. We can only blame the shame, guilt energy that they are transferring from themselves onto you with their words.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, see how it's different. And my films show how shame, guilt, energy goes from you to me because I called you stupid, dumb, and ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
And then we self judge ourselves through the inner critic.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
that's how shame, guilt comes to us. And what does it do? Shame, guilt, energy turns positive emotions to negative ones. We are already compassionate. We're beautiful. We're intuition. But shame, guilt, like a computer virus,
Mm-hmm.
comes into us because we are an energy system. We have meridians and everything inside of us. It comes into us, turns our compassion to depression,
Mm-hmm.
turns our intuition to anxiety, turns our passion to anger. So, what would you do? You would get rid of the shame, guilt energy. Why would you spend 10 years on depression and 5 years on anxiety and 5 years on everything? Because, okay, it can help you maybe manage it, but it doesn't heal it.
Yeah, I agree.
See the different concept I'm going on?
No, it makes perfect sense. I totally understand with what you're saying.
And everybody has shame, guilt, energy in different quantities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now, why do I say shame, guilt, and not shame and guilt? Because that confuses people. Shame, we have two nervous systems, one voluntary and one involuntary.
Mm-hmm.
The involuntary is like the unconscious mind,
Mm-hmm.
and the voluntary is the conscious mind. Shame, guilt, energy affects both systems, but our illustrious culture calls them different names. Okay, now if you have a bacteria, let's say bacteria A in your brain, what do they call it? Meningitis.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the same bacteria in your stomach, they call it gastritis.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the same bacteria in your liver, they call it hepatitis.
Mm-hmm.
Same bacteria in your arms, they call it arthritis.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but you see how it confuses you?
Yeah.
And then you get a book that's 952 pages.
Yes.
Okay? You could probably add a couple hundred more. But
Most definitely.
it's not the root,
Yeah.
it's a symptom.
No, it
So
makes
go
sense.
ahead. I call it shame guilt because your mind, when people can't, the reason that's we've been stuck since Adam and Eve, okay, because my mind's going, oh, shame is bad and guilt is good, and I don't know how to fix them, so I'm going to do the shame. Then I go, oh, I got to do the guilt, and you never, ever, ever, ever get rid of it because you got to put them together to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it also comes down to people's perception of good and bad
Exactly. So
because if
we're
they
splitting
don't, yeah.
ourselves up,
Mm-hmm.
and a split person can't heal.
That's true. Exactly. To be healed, you have to learn how to become one.
Yeah, so I'm bringing very good point. I like that. Shame guilt is an energy,
Mm-hmm.
and they took it apart, and but that's what they do. You know, you have depression and anxiety and arthritis, and you have bullying. In my book, I have like 100 words that are all,
The same
you know,
thing.
procrastination, bullying, embarrassment, joke telling, genocide. I mean, everything is shame guilt. And that's why I'm like, how come nobody ever took this and made it into like one study? Everybody's going to, oh, go to depression class, oh, go to anxiety class, go.
Yeah.
And then I have people coming to me and they say, I would love for you to help me, but I think I'm too bad that you can even help me. I said, why do you say that? They said, well, I've been in depression help for 5 years and I still can't get rid of it. They tell me to manage it. So I must be really bad. I must be really unhelpable. And I said, no, you gave you the wrong information because
Yeah.
unless you get rid of the shame guilt, you're going to have depression or anxiety or, however it shows for you.
Exactly.
So that's what I want to tell people,
Yeah.
that the way out is you can talk to depression. Hi, depression. How are you? Hi, anxiety. Yeah, talk to your emotions like you do. You're very emotional. You want to analyze your emotions and talk to your emotions. But shame guilt is not an emotion. It's a foreign force that come upon a humanity that turns our positive emotions to negative. Each emotion has a positive and a negative aspect. People don't know that.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why it's kind of like a taboo as well, because people don't want to talk about it. People don't want to acknowledge it. People don't want to understand where this energy is coming from and why it's causing them to feel a certain way and perceive a certain way and act out in a certain way.
So
So it makes
now I'm
sense.
saying to you, everybody has it. We can say shame, guilt, energy. Maybe people can handle that better than shame. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this is shame, guilt, energy, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't belong to me. And anything that's outside of you, what can you do? Get rid of it.
Exactly.
And guess what? Shame, guilt, energy only has one defect, one flaw.
And what's that?
It dissolves in detection.
Mm, I
Mm.
like that. I like
Hello.
that. That was
Okay.
tasteful.
So remember the Wizard of Oz
Mm-hmm.
as Dorothy goes up the yellow brick road in
Mm-hmm.
great anticipation to be all in powerful Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Trembles. Toto pulls the curtain back. And what is that? A little old man, bald and gray, with a big puff of machine that makes smoke. Shame, guilt, energy is a puff of smoke.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. It's very visual. For all
Isn't
my
that
visual
cool?
listeners out there, there you go. That's a great way to think about it.
Look at episode 2 on I'm Good Film, and I have Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz, and everybody on there, and it's just a puff of smoke. And when you see shame guilt, feel shame guilt, say, "Oh, you're a puff of smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not working with you." but I will talk to my depression or my anxiety and my depression because they're parts of me. I
Mm-hmm.
talk to parts of me. I don't talk to a force that's come upon me. That's another long story. Some people say it's an alien force or whatever. I don't know, but it doesn't belong to humanity.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to you. So what can you do? You can kick it out. Dissolves in detection. Ah, I found you.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. It makes perfect sense. It's a great way to really handle what's going on inside of you, really be able to identify the difference between what's going on. So when you acknowledge that as energy, then that goes away and then you can focus on something else. You can focus on what's in front of you. You can focus on something positive. You can focus on what's going on in your mind versus the energy that's trying to take over you and trying to manipulate you and believing something that is not really there. It's just
It's there, but it's deceiving you
exactly, it's deceiving you into believing that it's more than it
what
has
it
more
is.
power. Exactly, and it has more power over you. In reality, it doesn't.
Okay, now what is fear?
Fear is,
Is shame, guilt, energy
yeah,
that's
shame.
been locked inside of you. It's like
Mm-hmm.
having a double dose of shame, guilt.
Yeah, it's like it's been repressed automatically without you
Exactly.
realizing it.
So
Yeah.
it's like harder to get out. But if
Yeah.
you can acknowledge fear as shame, guilt, you go, huh, okay, I've been
Yeah.
at this for many years. So it's easier when people are, so I'm understanding that this is a whole new concept, but it's the truth.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's very true because it comes with shame and guilt. And a lot of people will be like, oh no, but it's different than it's so embarrassing. But like if you think about it, shame and guilt is also part of embarrassment.
Say shame, guilt.
Shame guilt is
I know
also
it
part of
helps your
embarrassment.
mind.
Yes.
What it does when you say shame, guilt, it
Thank you for
helps
the
your mind.
correction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
put them together. Now we could call
Mhm.
it cuckoo energy or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know what to call it, but we got to put those words together to heal because
Mhm.
it's like someone putting you on a course and say, take this road, but then they have two roads and there you are, you're stuck because you don't know which road to take. And that's why
Mhm.
we've been stuck in shame, guilt since Adam and Eve. We don't know which road to take. It has confused our mind. So I'm telling people, don't get confused. Put shame, guilt together as one energy and be Dorothy of the Wizard of Oz and walk away because it's a puff of smoke. And
Yeah.
I'm a Toto pulling the curtain out.
Yes, everybody. Lois is our Toto, where she's opening our eyes to realize it is not really there. That's amazing. I really do appreciate that perspective because it's truly different. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you for giving me the proper terminology because now I'm reflecting back and I'm really thinking about the shame guilt that I felt and how I always separated it and how it always affected me, and I allowed it to affect me because I
You
separated
didn't
and
know,
yeah,
but
and
you didn't know.
I
What
didn't
it
know. I
and what
didn't
is
know.
I mean, seriously, this is what's out there. Why would you
Exactly.
know? Why would you know? That's why God sent me back.
To tell me so we could tell the
Right,
world so you can
right.
live out your mission, helping other people understand that shame guilt is something that
A
we
puff
can
of
really
smoke.
exactly, it's just a puff of smoke, just blow it away.
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Isn't
that's
that
amazing.
freeing, especially in this climate that we have in the world today? We
Yeah.
won't even go into that. But anyway, shame, guilt, energy is not ours to own or to give.
It's not. And this really applies to anybody and everybody.
Everybody.
Nobody's exempt, no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are. If you can comprehend, then you can know that shame guilt is something that we all need to recognize and release.
Correct. Now, the problem is we don't even know what shame, guilt behaviors are because we call them normal.
Yes.
So that's why I call myself an educator. I have a book, 500 Questions, One Answer. I show 500 ways we shame ourselves or other people shame us. So, you know how it is. How do you defeat your enemy? You know the tricks.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it's important to know what shame guilt does to us and how we respond. Everybody responds different. And I have that as a newsletter, 500 questions, one answer. And every week you receive 25 questions and answers.
Wow.
and you will learn what shame guilt behaviors are. It's all questions and answers, very easy to understand. And it's
Wow.
free on my newsletter. So when you sign up for my newsletter, you get that book. And every week you'll get 25 questions.
Wow, that's impressive. Because if you start asking those questions on a weekly basis and then divide those 25 in a daily, then you could really start reflecting and thinking about your life and who you are in a different way. Well, it would truly awaken you.
It's huge.
Yeah.
There is, I can't believe no one ever took it as an independent study. I mean, seriously, it affects every part of us. It turns our mind into confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get confused? That's shame guilt. Confusion is a symptom of shame guilt energy entering you.
Okay, so just another question that it just popped up, and I'm really curious. Do you believe that your faith has given you the guidance to really discover this?
Oh, of course. I mean, I died and God sent me back. And what happened, and we're talking like 5, 6, 7 years old. I don't even remember, not having that insight. Anyway, I about 20 years ago when I discovered all this, and I was so people, you just have to know this. And I also help people talk to their inner self. And I was giving a lecture, and somebody raises their hand. They said, Lois, what are you talking about? I go, well, when you see this and you see that, and they go, I don't see what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I go, you can't see that? I did not know people can see things in that
Yeah.
aspect. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
I
Or
know
have
what you
that
mean.
awareness.
Exactly.
And so I said, I've got to make a film so I can show people what I feel and see.
Mm-hmm.
So at 60 something, I went to film school to make my films. And my first one is Out of Discord into Harmony. And it's me talking to depression as a little child inside of me talking to anger, who was a little boy 8 years old. And, I talk to myself like
Mm-hmm.
we all self talk. And this is not unusual, but people
Yeah.
say your inner child. We have inner children
Mm-hmm.
inside of us, and their names are depression and anxiety. And so we make friends with them. And when
Mm-hmm.
we make friends with them, they release the shame guilt of our past.
Mm-hmm.
They release it.
Yep, and the
So that's what I help
comfortability
people.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my other films, I'm Good Film, I make the energy of shame guilt visible. So it shows how it comes into you, messes you all up, and it's just an energy. But I made it visible so people can understand what it looks like.
Yeah.
Now, everybody may have a different take on that, but to know that it's an outside energy
It's
is
important.
huge.
Yeah.
Shame guilt does not belong to the human race.
Correct.
It
We
doesn't
shouldn't accept
belong,
it. Exactly.
but we were told it belonged. And
Mm-hmm.
we're supposed to be victims. And
Mm-hmm.
we're supposed to not feel good about ourselves, and we should hide in a hole. Our DNA has been affected by the shame guilt energy because we keep on going down and down. So we have lost a lot of our, well, we don't haven't lost them, but we have different aspects inside of us that have not been awakened. Like we used to have like 64 DNA strands, and now we have like, we still have them, but they're not active. We have like 12 or 14 active.
Okay.
Isn't that huge?
It is. It's very mind-boggling if you really think about it.
So why would not you consider releasing the shame guilt? Because once you release it, it's like a black cover over you. And when you take it off, you're all that God gave you. You don't
Yeah.
have to make yourself better. People that keep going, oh, I got to do this and I got to do this. And, you know, it's better, but you keep fighting yourself because you're fighting the shame guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't it smarter to get rid of it?
Yeah. It would be easier to just get rid of it. To be honest, now I just feel like people just choose it without even knowing that
Well, of
they're
course they
choosing it.
don't know. I mean, your mother and your father and your brother and your sister and the Pope and the president and the set, everybody shames everybody.
Mm-hmm. It
Right.
does.
So
And no one's
it's
exempt.
no one exempt.
Yeah.
Maybe a robot is, but
Not even shame on them. No.
yeah, but it's such a broad category. But it's just an energy that we have been made to fear.
Yeah, that's very
Okay.
true.
Now, the inner critic
Hmm.
is our friend. Who
Elaborate.
Our inner critic is our friend who is still living in the past of us.
Mm,
Now, my inner critic calls himself King. Okay. So he has allowed me to be my own boss, so to speak. He doesn't interject too much into my life because I have learned about shame, guilt, energy. He keeps us stuck so we don't violate, they keeps us close and safe. And you're saying, I don't want to be close and safe. I want to be all that I can be. But the inner critic says, no, 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 because I still got to protect you. So it's like, okay, give me a chance. So when people start, doing all the shame guilt, I throw it away. So I'm proving that I can take care of myself.
yeah.
So now your inner critic is there for your best friend. He is your best friend. You can't cut him out. You can't shut him up. You make friends with him and he negotiates with you that I can take care of myself now. I'm not 14, 15, 10 years old. But
Hmm.
he's living in 1950 for me because I was born in 1943. So he has not come into the timeline for 2022. So he thinks I'm still a little kid.
Yeah, that makes
Okay.
sense. That makes sense.
Okay. Now, my
Yeah.
film, Out of Discord into Harmony, shows you how I talk to my inner critic and we become friends. Now,
Mm,
right now, my inner critic, excuse me, King, my king, he travels around the world finding a beautiful people like you to do podcasts on. That's his job. His job is not to shame and guilt me.
mm, that's beautiful.
See, so he's my friend.
Yeah, you guys are now friends.
Yeah.
That's
How
amazing.
cool is that?
That is pretty cool because once we acknowledge what's inside of us and know that it's okay that we allow it to be named and we allow ourselves to label it and we allow ourselves to not put our own selves into that crazy factor, because if you think about it from a stubborn mindset, oh, they would automatically label you as crazy. But if you think about it in an open mindset, then it gives you the opportunity to appreciate what you have done and how you are trying to explain it and help people so that they can recognize it in themselves. So that's truly amazing that you are putting it in this perspective, because it's really helping me reflect on myself. Like, you know what, I do have one of those inside of me,
Well,
I do.
everybody has an inner critic.
Yeah.
I have counseled somebody that had three inner critics. Okay. And
Hmm.
he's okay because we did some work. They're all friends and he's very powerful now. Everybody. So look at my Out of Discord into Harmony film. That's on my I'm Good film site.
Hmm.
And it shows you how to talk to your inner critic.
Yeah, I think we all need to
If we
acknowledge.
had a disagreement, how would we solve it? Hi, how are you? We talk it out, right?
Yeah.
We can't kill the inner critic. The
No.
only critic, if you try to shut him up, he only gets stronger.
And
And
it's like,
mentally trying to get rid of them is the worst thing to do. You got to make friends with them, like, hi, how are you? And he might say, well, get away because you're stupid. Okay, so tomorrow you keep, right? In that
Mhm. Yeah,
negotiation doesn't happen in 2 minutes. You
exactly.
have to work at it like a couple weeks or something. And then
That
he's my best friend.
Yeah, and it makes sense why people feel like they're having a battle within themselves is because they're not acknowledging it. They're not friends with it. They're
But
trying to
nobody told them to do. They always
exactly.
told it's the evil thing inside of you and get rid of it. No, it's not evil. It's part of you. How could you have an evil thing inside of you when you're made by God?
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's just because you may hear or be perceived in a negative or a bad way doesn't mean that you have to always go follow it. If somebody tells you to jump off the bridge, not like you have to jump off the bridge, it's still
Right.
choices. Everyone still has a choice, and you have a choice to acknowledge it. Even if nobody has told you about this, you still do something like this in some way, shape, or form.
Of
You're just
course.
putting a label on it. Yeah,
It
you're just telling people it in a way that makes more sense and that's
what
easier to understand. And
when
that's
you
what we
name it,
need. Yeah,
you claim it.
exactly.
So I'm putting names to all these things and all this emotions and stuff, like they all do have names and they have a category. And you can never, ever, ever get rid of guilt unless you get rid of the shame that's causing it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Okay? That's
Yeah,
important for you to know.
that's truly beautiful with what you said. Oh, can you say it again? I just want to hear it one more
You'll
time.
never, ever get rid of shame. Excuse me. You'll never, ever get rid of guilt until you get rid of the shame that's causing the guilt.
Mm, very well said.
Okay? And people
Yeah.
say, I took this $10,000 course to get rid of guilt, and I did all these programs and all these protocols and all these lectures, and I think I'm just hopeless because I still have the guilt. And I said, no, you're right, because if you never got rid of the shame energy, which is the guilt energy,
Mm-hmm.
you'll never get rid of the guilt. And I will tell
Exactly.
you, you will never do it. So people say, I'm hopeless with guilt. I said, well, you got to get rid of the shame. It's like a fire never goes out if you keep on throwing gasoline on it.
Exactly. Exactly. I was just thinking about it. Like sometimes when people get mad, sometimes they have to feed the fire to get more and more mad or to even stay mad. Because to be honest, I can't be mad for very long. It's exhausting. It's exasperating. You know what I mean? So it's like people have to think about it in that way. You can't continue to feed your shame guilt any
No, never
longer.
say your, the shame guilt. Everybody says your. We were taught that way, or my shame guilt. Never, never own it. It's the shame guilt.
You're supposed to claim the inner critic, but not
My
the
inner
shame.
critic, my inner critic, my depression, but not my shame guilt. It's the shame guilt. It's the stupid energy upon me. It's not mine to own. Shame guilt is not ours to own or to give.
Okay, thank you for that correction. Thank you for the terminology.
Everybody does that, like
Yeah.
100% of people. Like you're not alone.
No, because once I started thinking about it with your correction, I was like, oh,
Isn't that huge? I mean,
it's
like if you
huge.
just do one thing today and always call it the shame guilt energy,
Mhm.
it's you're miles ahead of everybody.
Yeah. It's already a different perspective just by thinking of it as the shame guilt. By one word of changing it changes the whole entire
Everything,
everything. Just yeah,
everything.
exactly. Everything.
That's why shame guilt is not to be owned or to
Mhm.
be given. It's the, it's like, do you ever do taffy?
Yeah.
And it is like, pulling taffy and it's like, that's what shame guilt does, energy does to you. It's sticky and it sticks to you and you
Yeah.
like, ugh,
Yeah.
ugh, pull it off.
Yeah.
It's
That's so
just a
true.
puff of smoke and you don't claim it because when you claim it, it comes in more
Mm-hmm.
because you're inviting it in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so true. Ugh.
And never say, oh, it's such a shame that it's raining today. I can't have my barbecue. It's not a shame. It's sad. It's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Use a
But
different
it's
verb.
never, don't use the word shame.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to you. Like if we could
Exactly.
take it out of vocabulary, it'd be great. One, maybe in 5 years we will.
Right. Maybe, hopefully, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. Make a
How,
petition. I'll put my name on
yeah.
it.
So, 5 years from now, we'll be talking. We say, we did it. We did it. We took it out of the dictionary.
Right. No, nobody acknowledges it. Nobody acknowledges it.
Okay. When you have a problem with somebody, you sort of stay away. You don't keep acknowledging someone hitting you all the time.
Hmm.
So, and what happens when you don't acknowledge something?
It goes away.
It goes away.
Yep.
It goes to another person that can feed off you. See, the shame guilt energy steals your energy, your light energy
Hmm.
to live. It
Yeah.
can't function without you. It's kind of like a parasite.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So think of shame guilt energy as a big parasite who's
Like a
sucking you
leech.
away.
Yeah.
Is a leech. Yeah, I in my in my younger days, I said, maybe I'll call it the shame guilt leech.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna change it on my website. Let's think about shame, guilt, leech.
Yeah,
The
we're
one that's
talking.
stuck in us all.
Yeah, maybe I'll turn that around and just say the shame guilt leech.
Hmm. Or you can make a little film with it, a leech looking for someone to suck
Suck
all
on.
their joy. Yeah.
So when you feel that, it's not a feeling because it affects your feelings. It isn't a
Mhm.
feeling. It affects your feeling. say, oh, you call your friend up, oh, George, guess what? The shame, guilt, leech came, but I threw it away. So that's skill on that one. I like that.
I do too. So I guess to wrap up the show, what would be some great advice you can give me or the audience before we wrap it up?
Don't let the shame, guilt, leech suck you and lose all your beauty, because that's all it is.
Yes.
And shame, guilt, leech is not ours to own or to give. And God made us perfect. Now, one thing I can have to say is that David Hawkins, I don't know if you're aware of him, he did a energy scale, numerologically speaking, for each emotion.
Okay.
Enlightenment is 700,000 to the 30th power.
Wow.
Okay. 700,000 with 30 zeros. Okay. That's even too hard to complicate. I mean,
yeah,
think about it. But
yeah.
But you can write it down and you'll think about it later. And then you have joy and peace and love and all that. And then at 200, not 200,000, at 200, it turns to anger and depression and anxiety. And guess what the last one is?
Shame.
Guilt.
Oh, guilt.
And what's
shame,
after? Shame, guilt. And what's after that? Nothing.
Yeah.
It comes in at a 10.
Wow.
When you're in shame, guilt energy, you're at the lowest energy that you can still be alive.
Wow. Mind blown. Wow.
That's why people commit suicide, because of the guilt.
Yeah.
So
they just can't take it no more. Yeah.
Right. You have no energy to fight it. So if you're in guilt, I have a pamphlet on my website. Now is the time, and it's readings from spirit. God talks, I write, and it helps raise your vibration to get out of the hole of guilt. Okay, so that's helpful. And also try to use regret instead of guilt.
Yeah.
Because regret moves you on to a solution. Never, ever stay in guilt. Call your friend. Talk to God. Talk to your baby. Anything, but don't stay in guilt. You can't stay in guilt. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's like one of the best advice. That's one of the best advice. If I could do a top 10 best advice, yours would be up there. That's amazing. Thank you for that. I feel like
change your perspective. Change your. I can feel regret. I shouldn't have put my money in the stock market and lost it. But guilt. There's nothing after guilt. Okay, you understand? There's nothing after guilt. At least regrets get you out of guilt, and you can think of other things. But guilt is an absolute no-no.
There you go. You guys heard it first from Lois. She said it, and she's repeating it from, what was the name again? Donald, did you say?
Pardon?
What was the gentleman's name that wrote that book?
David Hawkins.
David Hawkins.
That's immaterial. I mean, if they want to look it up, that's fine. But the message is, don't stay in guilt. If you can't get out, call your girlfriend or eat a pizza or something, or eat some chocolate. Right. But you can't stay in guilt.
Do not stay in guilt. If there's anything specific that you need to remember from this episode, is do not stay in guilt. That's like the brick behind your wall.
From the shame, guilt, leech.
Exactly, from the shame, guilt, leech that's coming to get you.
Okay.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Lois. This conversation has been such a delight. I really enjoyed every moment of it, every minute of it. It's been very educational. You have taught me a lot. You have helped me look at my words differently. I really appreciate that. And I really hope my audience, even if it's just one of them, if you are able to just receive this and just perceive it and reflect on it, I will be beyond grateful and beyond blessed that you are just thinking in a different perspective to help change your own mindsets and think about this in a different way, and to release this shame, guilt, leech that's coming and attacking us all. It's like Godzilla. Alrighty, y'all take care. Until next time.